In 1970, an operating room in the United States. A cardiac surgeon has spent hours trying to save a man and has run out of moves. The heart will not hold on its own. Every time the machine is eased back, the pressure collapses. After hours, the surgeon makes the call that surgeons are trained to make and rarely have to. He pronounces the man dead. The anesthesiologist powers down his equipment and walks out. The staff begin to clean. The chest is loosely closed for the autopsy that will come later. But one thing in that room is left running by accident: the monitors. And the monitors are flat. No pressure, no pulse. A still line where a heartbeat used to be. The surgeon and his assistant pull off their gowns, stand in the doorway, and talk through everything they might have done differently. 20 minutes pass. A dead man, an open doorway, 2 tired men, and a flat line. And then the line moves. That is where this begins. Not with a belief, with a record. Because what that man said when he came back is the reason you are watching this, even if you do not know it yet. There is a pattern. It has been written down thousands of times by people who had no contact with each other, across cultures that never spoke, across a century of hospital records. People whose hearts stopped, whose brain activity fell to nothing, who by every measure we have were gone, and who returned and described something that lines up. Not identical scenery, not the same words, but the same underlying sequence again and again. 5 stages, and the strangest part is who reports them. Not just the devout, not just the ones primed to expect a tunnel and a light. Atheists report it. Surgeons report it. People blind from birth who have never seen a single image in their lives report it and describe what they saw. Children too young to have learned what death is supposed to look like draw it, and draw the same things adults describe. The people who could not have known are the ones who make this impossible to wave away. This is not a video about faith. It is a video about a structure that keeps appearing in the data, and what that structure might be telling us about where the mind actually comes from. The 5 stages are coming, but you would not believe them yet. So first, the cases that left careful, skeptical people unable to explain what they had seen. Return to that operating room. The flat line begins to flicker. Faint electrical activity at first, the kind a heart sometimes throws off after death. A reflex, nothing. The men in the doorway barely turn. Then it steadies into a rhythm. 30 beats a minute. 40. The man is generating pressure. The surgeon is shouting for the anesthesiologist to get back in. They put him under again, give him oxygen, medication. The pressure climbs, the rhythm holds. And against everything the room expected, the man lives, and lives without brain damage. In the weeks after, the surgical team kept going back to his bedside. They wanted to understand. He told them about a brightness, a passage, the things people say, the things that are easy to file under a dying brain. That was not what unsettled the surgeon. What unsettled him was that the man described the room. From above, he described the 2 of them standing in the doorway with their gowns off. He described the anesthesiologist rushing back in. He had been flat on the table, eyes taped, gone. And he described the choreography of his own death, as if he had been near the ceiling watching it. And then he described the notes. During long operations, nurses would stick phone messages onto the equipment, small written reminders, calls for the surgeon to return later. The man described those notes. The problem is simple, and the surgeon could not get around it. Those notes were not there before the operation. They were placed on the machine while the man was on the table, while he was, by every reading they had, dead. He could not have seen them going in. He was unconscious before they were written, and unconscious until well after, in intensive care, a day or more later. There was no window in which his open eyes could have taken in that room. The surgeon told this story near the end of his own life plainly, like a man reporting something he never resolved. "What does that tell you?" he kept asking. "What does that tell you?" He never answered it. He just left it sitting there, the way it sits here now. The easy answer is the one you are already reaching for. The dying brain hallucinates. Oxygen drops, neurons misfire. The mind throws up a final show. And that may be true, but it does not survive the next question. If this is a hallucination of a failing brain, why does every failing brain hallucinate the same thing? Different bodies, different chemistries, different centuries. A medieval account and a hospital transcript from last year line up. Hallucinations do not do that. Dreams do not do that. Press 100 people about their dreams and you get 100 private worlds. Press 100 people about this and you get one world, described 100 times. There is a woman whose case made that question much harder to dismiss. She was blind from birth, not blurred, not low vision, no sight at all, never a single image. Her whole life lived through touch and sound and the shape of things under her hands. In the early 1970s, a violent traffic accident stopped her heart. For several minutes, she was clinically dead. When they brought her back, she described watching the people work on her body. She described the room, the equipment, the conversations between the staff, the moment they cut her hair. A woman who had never seen anything described seeing it. The detail that caught the researchers was smaller and harder. She described her wedding ring. She had worn it for years. She knew every contour of it by touch, every edge, the way you know an object you have held 10,000 times. But she had never seen it, and she described it, not by feel, by sight, the look of it. The one honest gap in her account was color. She had no language for color, because color had never reached her. So she spoke of brightnesses, degrees of light, differences she noticed but could not name. A sighted person would have said red, gold, shadow. She said bright, brighter, dim. Everything else lined up with what sighted people report. Only the words for color were missing, exactly where you would expect them to be missing in someone who had been seeing for the first time. A hallucination is built from memory. You cannot hallucinate a sense you have never had. The brain has no stored images to draw a room from, no library of faces, no remembered light, if light has never once entered it. Whatever she was doing in those minutes, she was not replaying anything her brain had stored. There was nothing stored to replay. And then there are the children. A pediatrician spent years collecting the accounts of children who had come close to death, young enough that death was still abstract to them, too young to have absorbed the cultural script, the paintings, the films, the funeral, the idea of a tunnel and a light at the end. Children who, if you asked them what dying looks like, would have had no answer. They described the same sequence adults describe. Some of them drew it. The drawings exist. A child who has never been taught what the afterlife is supposed to look like puts crayon to paper and draws the same architecture a grown atheist reports from a cardiac arrest. These are not sermons. They are case files, thousands of them, from hospitals across decades and continents, and the consistency in them is the whole problem. So set the explanations side by side. To hold that all of this is the dying brain inventing a story, you have to accept something genuinely strange, that the brain produces its most ordered, most vivid, most unforgettable experience precisely when it is most damaged, least oxygenated, closest to silence. That the moment of greatest breakdown produces the moment of greatest clarity. That is not impossible, but it is not the simple, tidy answer it pretends to be. The simple answer has a hole in it, the shape of a blind woman's wedding ring. Now you have earned the stages. Here is the sequence the records describe, the same 5, in the same order, told the way thousands of people who came back have told it. The first stage, the accounts agree, is separation. It does not arrive gently. One moment there is pain, pressure, the whole weight of a body in trouble. And then the weight lets go. The pain does not fade so much as become irrelevant, like a sound in another room. A strange calm moves in where the panic was. And then a confusion, quiet but total. Something is wrong with where one is. People describe noticing a body below them. For a moment, it means nothing. An object in a room. Then it resolves into recognition. That one is mine, but it does not feel like them anymore. The body is over there. The thing that says I is here, somewhere above and to the side, watching the body the way one would watch a coat just taken off. And then comes the strangeness of the seeing. It is not the seeing they knew. There are no edges to it, no single point being looked out from. The accounts describe taking in the entire room at once, every corner, behind and in front at the same time, with a sharpness that makes ordinary sight feel like a smudged window no one knew was dirty. There is no fear in it. They report being alert, clear, more present than they had ever been, and weight is simply gone. There is no effort to anything. Then the edges of the room begin to darken, and a pull arrives. Not a hand, not a force exactly, more like a current one decides not to resist, an invitation that does not need words. The second stage is the passage. The room is gone. There is movement now, fast movement, but nothing rushes past. No wind, no friction, no sense of a vehicle, just velocity with nothing to push against. Darkness surrounds them, but it is not the darkness of a switched-off room. It has depth. People describe it as less like absence and more like the inside of something vast. The calm has not left. If anything, it has thickened into something closer to certainty. And then, ahead, far off, a point of light. Not the flat light of a bulb. Moving toward it, many describe realizing they are inside a passage of some kind, and the shape of that passage is not fixed. It takes whatever form the mind hands it. Think the word tunnel, and a tunnel is what appears. The record suggests that here, with no body to anchor it, awareness stops merely observing and starts shaping. That thought and surrounding become the same thing, that the mind builds the road as it walks it. Some hear a tone they cannot place, a music with no instrument. Others hear a silence so complete it feels full rather than empty, and the light ahead keeps growing. What began as a pinprick widens, and the closer it comes, the more it resolves into something that is not one thing. It is countless points, moving, folding through each other, the way a vast flock turns as one body and yet is made of thousands. It is not lit, it is alive, and it pours something outward that the accounts all reach for the same word to name, and the word is love, though everyone who says it adds that the word is too small. A pressure of being wanted so total, it feels as though it could break a person open. The light fills everything, and then they are through it. The third stage is the encounter, and the accounts agree that the sense of no longer being alone arrives before anyone is seen. Then forms begin to gather out of the brightness, and they take the shape of who was needed. Someone lost, a face from years ago, a grandparent. People describe knowing them instantly, with no doubt at all, faster than recognition usually works. And they are not as they were when they left. No illness on them, no age, no damage, just them. the essential them, whole and unmistakable. Others come in older forms, presences that feel less like relatives and more like something that has been near a long time, longer than this life, watching from a distance never noticed, and the understanding lands without anyone saying it. You were never alone down there, not once. The surroundings soften around the meeting. The raw light eases into something that feels like a place, though it is nowhere anyone has ever been, not a location, a condition, safety, belonging. And no one speaks, because speaking turns out to have been the crude version of what happens here. You think, and you are understood, completely, with none of the loss that words always carried. They answer, and the answer is already inside you. Every conversation ever had on earth was a translation, the accounts suggest, and a poor one, of this. There is a quiet, settled certainty of belonging. It does not feel like dying. It feels, the accounts say again and again, like arriving. And then the mood shifts, and a path seems to open, and you move into the fourth stage, which is the one that changes people most. The fourth stage is the review, and it is the one that changes people most. The accounts describe a life beginning to play, but not the way one watches a film, not a screen in front of you with you safe in your seat. It rises up around you, all of it, and the order is gone. Childhood and last year and a moment you had forgotten entirely, all present at once. The first day of school, a lie you told, the weight of a child in your arms, a sentence someone said to you that quietly redirected your whole life, a cruelty so small you never thought of it again. And you are not watching these from outside. You are inside them, from every angle at once, including the angle you never had. That cutting thing you said to someone when you were young and careless. You feel it now from inside their chest. The heat of it. The way it actually landed, which is nothing like how you imagined it landing, because you never imagined it at all. And then the reverse. A small kindness you barely registered. A moment you smiled at a stranger and forgot by lunch. You see now what you could not have known. That the stranger was at the end of something, had decided something, and that one unearned moment of being seen by another human being pulled them back from it. You never knew. You will never have known in life. Nothing, it turns out, was small. Everything you did sent a line outward that kept traveling long after you looked away. You start to see the lines, how one moment fed the next, how the whole thing was connected in a pattern you were standing too close to ever see. And the people who hurt you arrive in the review too. And here is where it does its strangest work. You do not see them as the enemies you filed them as. You see their whole lives, the child each of them was, what was done to that child, the exact wound that turned a hurt person into someone who hurts. And you understand it. Not forgive it from above. Understand it from inside, the way you suddenly understand a sentence in a language you have been struggling with. The same light falls on your own worst parts, the thing you were ashamed of, the habit that ran your life. You see underneath it, to the fear that was driving it, the wound you spent decades refusing to look at directly. And there is no voice condemning any of it, no judge, no sentence. There is only seeing, finally, clearly, what your life actually was, from the only vantage point that could ever show you. And from that vantage point, the things you thought were the headline turn out to be footnotes. The promotion, the argument you won, the status you protected. From here they have no light in them at all. The moments that glow, and some of them do, visibly, the accounts say, are almost always the ones you would never have guessed. A meal, a hand held, an ordinary afternoon you did not know to treasure. What remains when the noise is stripped away is connection. Presence, the times you were actually there for someone. That is the whole ledger. The review does not teach you anything new. It shows you what was true the entire time, sitting in plain view, invisible only because you were living inside it and could not step back far enough to look. And here is the question the skeptic cannot easily answer. How would a dying, oxygen-starved brain know what a stranger on the street had decided to do that day? It would not. It could not. Unless the separateness we take for granted, me here, you there sealed off, was never as real as it felt. Unless down here, each of us is a fragment of something far larger, and in the review, you are simply remembering the whole you were always part of. The fifth stage is the boundary. The review settles, awareness widens, and the accounts describe becoming aware of where one is in a way that was not true before. This is the point of no return. Nothing here is dreamlike. It is the opposite of a dream, sharper than waking life, more solid, as if everything called real on earth was a faded copy, and this is the original. There is no longer a center in being one person. People describe feeling instead of thinking, how everything connects, a simple order running underneath all of it, an order that is not explained because it doesn't need to be. It is recognized the way one recognizes a name. Time doesn't behave. There is no forward to it, no sense of before and after pulling anything along. There is only a calm, unforced belonging. And then comes the awareness of an edge. It does not look the same for everyone. Some meet a river, some a gate, a wall, a line drawn across the ground. Some see no image at all and simply know it is there. But everyone understands the same thing about it without being told. Cross this, and you do not come back. And here, almost no one wants to. The peace is past anything life offered. The pull is toward the far side, toward home, which is exactly why what comes next is so strange. The return is sudden. One moment there is openness and width, and that bottomless calm. The next, the accounts describe being slammed back into the body, and it is the worst part of the whole account. It is heavy, it is cold. People compare it to pulling on soaked, freezing clothes. Pain rushes back in. Gravity reclaims them. The awareness that had opened to take in everything at once narrows down again to a single point behind two eyes, one body, one direction at a time. And there is grief in it, a specific grief, for something enormous held for a moment and just taken away. The world looks exactly as it was left, and no one comes back feeling the same standing in it. Why some return and most do not is the one question the records cannot answer, because the records, by definition, only come from the ones who returned. What waits past the edge for the ones who cross it? No one in any of these accounts can say, because none of them went. But there is one thing every account that reaches the far enough point agrees on, and it does not bend for anyone. The love on the other side is not earned. It is not a prize handed to the worthy and withheld from the rest. It does not check your record first. Everyone who gets that far meets the same thing. A regard so complete and so unconditional that the people describing it spend the rest of their lives short of words for it. It does not pick favorites. And the implication, if you sit with it, is heavy. What pulls a person back may have nothing to do with deserving to stay or being sent away. It may come down to nothing more than where the edge happened to fall in that particular moment. So here is what is left to deal with. Not the comfort of it, the problem of it. We assume the brain makes the mind. That consciousness is something the brain secretes, the way the stomach makes acid, and that when the brain stops, the mind stops with it. Full stop, end of signal. And the assumption is reasonable. Damage a brain and the person changes. Injure the right region and memory goes, or language, or the sense of self-phrase. The brain plainly shapes who we are. No one is arguing otherwise. But shaping a thing is not the same as manufacturing it. Bend a stream with a stone, and you have changed the water's path. You have not become the source of the water. We have watched, in enormous detail, the brain shape and bend and color consciousness. We have never once watched it make consciousness, never found the step where electrical activity in a clump of cells turns into the felt experience of being someone. After more than a century of looking, that step has never been located. We can describe the shaping down to the neuron. The making remains exactly where it was, unexplained. And then there is the evidence that simply does not fit the brain makes mind story. If these experiences were the brain improvising from its own contents, they should be as varied as the brains producing them. Private, idiosyncratic, scattered, like dreams. They are not. They are structured, ordered, the same sequence across strangers. They are remembered with a clarity that does not fade for decades, when real memories of the actual event blur within days. They happen when the brain is most impaired, sometimes when it is registering nothing at all. The blind, with no stored images, see. The children, with no learned script, describe the script. Every one of those facts is a small weight on the other side of the scale. So consider the other possibility, the one the lens in your imagination has been pointing at this whole time. A lens does not contain the landscape. It gathers light that is already out there and bends it into a single focused image. And in focusing it, it leaves almost everything else out of frame. Scratch the lens and the image blurs. Shatter it, and no image comes through that lens at all. But no one who understands what a lens is would conclude that the lens invented the landscape, or that the world stopped existing the moment the glass cracked. What if the brain is closer to that than we assumed? Not the maker of consciousness, but the aperture for it. Not the source, but the instrument that narrows a far wider awareness down to a single, survivable point of view. One body, one place, one moment after another. An opening tight enough to get an animal through a dangerous world. Useful, necessary even, but a narrowing, not a creation. And if that is what the brain is doing, then the moment it fails is not the moment the seeing ends. It is the moment the aperture opens. We cannot say with certainty which picture is true. Honesty requires admitting that. But one thing does not bend across thousands of accounts, across centuries and cultures, and the people who could not possibly have rehearsed it. The pattern holds. The same 5 stages, in the same order. The separation, when awareness lifts from the body, clearer than it ever was inside it. The passage through the dark toward a light that is not merely bright, but somehow alive. The encounter, where the ones you lost are whole again, and you learn you were never alone. The review, where your life is felt from every side at once, not judged but finally seen, and the moments that glow are never the ones you would have chosen. And the boundary, the edge you cannot cross and come back from, with a love on the far side that is complete, unconditional, and held out to everyone without exception. Whatever is actually happening in those minutes, it is real to the ones it happens to. It is consistent. It does not read like a malfunction. And it points, quietly and persistently, at a possibility we tend to flinch away from. That the thing reading meaning into these words right now, the awareness behind your eyes, might be far stranger and far larger than the 3 pounds of tissue we keep crediting with making it. Maybe the question was backward the entire time. Maybe you are not a body that somehow learned to be aware. Maybe you are awareness that briefly agreed to wear a body. And the moment everyone in these accounts describes, the moment the weight lets go and the room sharpens and the pull begins, is not the lights going out. It is not the lamp going out. It is the aperture opening and the landscape. It was never the source of finally reaching what is left to see it.